Welcome everyone to the Derbzilla channel, and for today I'm going to be working on my daughter's 2014 Chevy Impala Limited, as this is a carryover model from a previous generation. The technology and some of the interior options and features are quite dated, especially the radio and gauge cluster. So to remedy this and actually add on a backup camera so she doesn't reverse off into her neighbors or some random car or something like that, I've decided to upgrade the radio and add a backup camera. Here is the OEM stock radio and gauge clusters, and as you can see, they're quite dated. Definitely not very advanced. No screen or anything like that other than this tiny little, very basic screen. So of course there's no reverse camera feed or anything like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing removed. Very simple process. You're gonna get a trim tool, interior trim tool. You're gonna kind of wedge it between this beautiful wood trim right here, and it should pry away fairly easy, pop out. That'll expose some screws on the side. We'll remove those screws and we'll pull the radio out, which will leave us with a couple harnesses we need to unclip. We'll remove those, and I can move over the new radio and get that thing installed. Quick preview of what I actually picked up to install in the Impala. Went with a Jensen Car 710W 7-inch touchscreen media receiver, double DIN, offers Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all those fun things. I believe they're wireless, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is nice. So she don't have to plug in her phone into the radio. And then I went with this installation kit. Should fit it into the dash quite nicely. I also went with this Boyo backup camera setup. It's pretty much a license plate mount. It has some backup reverse lights and the camera all built in. Should be super easy to install. The hardest part will be running the cable or the wires from this camera to the radio. And then I also went with Crutchfield's ready harness setup, and also includes, there's a special device that I guess supposed to maintain any kind of steering wheel controls and operate properly with the vehicle. And then they actually built the harness for me, so it should be plug and play. I actually ordered all this stuff from Crutchfield. Check them out if you're looking for what should be an easy plug and play setup. I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff unboxed, laid out on the table, and we'll take a look at what we need to do. Part of the installation, I did order from Crutchfield the data bus interface unit, and I guess this is for a 29-bit data bus that the Impala has. And if you wanted to retain your steering wheel controls, if you have the Bose system, which I do not, there's an option actually to retain your amplification from your Bose amp. You would actually be using this connector here. I believe this is for non-amplified. And since I did pay Crutchfield a few dollars to actually pre-wire everything, they actually have everything attached and all the wires connected as it should. So it should be plug and play. But if you do want to retain all those features and I believe even OnStar and whatnot, you want this interface device. I'll have links for all these things in the description. But one thing I did want to note, this little dip switch setup right here, you're going to actually want to cross-reference that with the manual, which they provide, and you can actually download it as a PDF. You can kind of maybe see it here, but I have a Jensen radio, and they don't have a specific line item for the Jensen, so I actually set the dip switches to match with all other, which is 1, 2, and 3 on, which is the down position, and 4 off. We'll see how that works out. And yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and plug what I can into the radio. We'll go ahead and move into the car, remove the factory radio from the car, and then we'll get this thing hopefully installed. Another thing I want to note, if you do go with this little pack box here, it does say you want this not to be like wedged and wrapped in cables. You kind of want it to hang down in the dash if possible, kind of free of any obstructions, or you may have sound quality issues, which of course, if you're upgrading your radio, you don't want poor performance of your speakers and sound system. So, I mean, you don't want to downgrade when paying this kind of money. Back inside the car, as you can see here, I do have the radio trim panel, and I have my trim removal tool. Should be able to just wedge it up here and pry the trim loose without hopefully breaking it. And you can see it kind of unsnap and unclip. And it does have a little harness that's attaching to this passenger airbag indicator. You can kind of unclip that if you choose, or you can just kind of move the trim out of the way, which I might do depending on how difficult removing this will be. There we go, not too bad. Just need to unclip the white connector, and now you're presented with your radio. And you do have 4 7mm bolts here, and then another 7mm bolt, I guess, for the HVAC. I believe this does come unclipped from the radio, so I'm just going to remove the top 4 bolts here, 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 and we'll see what we're left with. The 4 bolts have been removed. Before you proceed, make sure your battery has been disconnected. I may not have mentioned that earlier. And I believe you can just loosen these 2 bottom bolts on the HVAC setup, and then you can get this to unclip and pop out. I can't get it to work its way out, so I'm gonna just go ahead and remove these further. Seems kind of a hassle. Oh, there we go. Maybe it's coming out now. There we go. So just loosen these up. You don't have to completely remove those. And if you pull this radio out, you have your harnesses on the back. You probably can't see that in your antenna. Go ahead and unplug everything. If you can. Let's see here. Don't make sure you don't want to scratch up your interior, so try to avoid that. So those are the 2 plugs. And then I have my antenna plug, which, dang, it's really odd. There we go. Here's your old radio. Thing is a freaking beast, as you can see here. I'm gonna go ahead and set her off to the side, and then you can see your wiring harness. You have a lot of actually pretty nice room in here, and you have a ton of room and openings here next to the radio. So if you need to put that, I'm probably put that pack box over there, and then that should sit out of the way and not get smashed by the radio. The aftermarket radio I'm going with is much, not nearly as deep as this, so that should give me some additional room as well. Little side-by-side comparison of the old radio, Big Bertha there, and the aftermarket radio. You can see the old one is much girthier and much less streamlined. Here we have the Boyo reverse backup camera setup. Feels like a very solid frame. I mean, this thing is super heavy, and it looks like it is adjustable. It has these little tiny set screws here. Then you can rotate this, I guess, for your best angle of your camera. It has these 2 bright LEDs that should give you a nice reverse light, for your camera. And it comes with, of course, the plug here, a long cable here that you're going to run up to your radio, and then this will actually plug into this. This will plug into that. This will plug in the other end, and this actually provides your actual connection for your camera input into your radio. Then you're going to have your 12 volt, your ground, and also your reverse LED on off. This will trigger the LEDs coming on or off. And then you have your couple little connectors if you want your backup lines, and also your, I guess it will mirror it or not. So it really depends on your how it pops up when you first test it to see if you need to cut these loops or not. And looking at the diagram for the radio, it does look like I can probably hook to your reverse violet white cable off the 20 pin, which is off to the side here, right, 20 pin right here, to find where I want to then splice in this LED on off cable. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. So I'm gonna actually run this cable through the car, and we'll see how I run that, and then I'll come back and show you guys what path I ended up going with to get this thing up into the center dash. And it looks like I have enough cable, so it should be good. And yeah, then we'll be able to mount this up once I get the cable ran, and we'll see how it looks. The backup camera cable has been ran. I'll give you guys a quick walkthrough so you know how to run it yourself if you want to follow the same path that I have. The first thing you're going to do is remove this plastic piece at the inside inner lip of your trunk, and really it's just held on by 2 little plastic clips. You actually will unscrew them. They're not like snaps, they're actually like plastic screws. Unscrew these, and this thing just pops out of the way. You also want to lift up and out your interior carpet. It just lifts right out, super easy. And then if you look back here behind the passenger side
brake light, tail light, or whatever, there is a grommet there with a cable coming out of it. And let's see if we can focus on that. Yeah, right here. And once you actually pop that out, you can actually open it up a little bit and feed the cable through, which is what I did right here. I fed the backup camera cable through here, and then I actually fed it down and through here. And this is kind of washed out, but there's actually, the cable comes from behind the bracket right here, and it feeds through behind here. There's a big opening, and you can just actually feed it through here, through that cable right there, through that grommet, and then actually just ran it all the way up along this carpet right here. So ran it all the way up the carpet, and then we'll swing over to the rear seats. Lighting is pretty bad, sorry about that. It's dark inside the car and very bright outside. And then you have your rear seats, passenger side. This flips down and actually fed the cable underneath the carpet all the way around. And you can actually see it protrude just a little bit right here to make sure it's not getting pinched. You can feed it behind this part right here. Goes behind here, and you can drop it into this plastic cladding through the top. Drop it all the way down through there, and you can just feed it all the way through underneath this trim to the front over here. You'll feed it all the way through here, all the way up behind here. And then you actually can drop this lower dash piece. Can't really see it very well with this camera, but there's a plastic piece here, 2 pop clips. Pop it down, run your cable over top of that, and then it feeds into your center dash right here. And you can see here, hangs out the front. Now it hasn't been attached to the end harness yet. I'll do that once I figure out how I want to splice to the LED signal, but I'll probably do that before I actually hook it to this piece. And just make sure you feed the right end through your car, because I believe one end's male, one end's female. So don't go backwards or you'll have to redo everything. We'll go ahead and take a look at the harness and see what I think I need to splice into. Ran out of little butt connectors or whatever to splice everything together. So I'm just gonna solder the positive for the backup camera to the harness, and as well as the ground. I already did the ground. Knocking out the positive real quick. Nothing fancy. I'm by no means a master solder tech. There we go. Nothing super fancy. Got some heat shrink. I'm going to put over it and knock that out. Also already done was I tapped. You can see this right here. I did a inline wire tap to the purple white wire, which is what I'm, according to the documents, says this is the reverse positive, to the green LED on off from the backup camera harness. So hopefully this will then send the trigger to engage the LED lights when I go in reverse and do a backup. So it should light up my reverse so I can pick it up a better picture with the camera. Hopefully that works out. I'll be testing this before I actually snap and fully install the radio. But yeah, so here is the positive, negative from this, and this actually will be plugging into the second connector on the back of the radio. This has a ton of actually outputs for speakers and amps and subs and stuff like that. I won't be using that at this time, but it'll be nice to have this as an option if she decides she wants to add some extra sound to the car or whatever. I'll go ahead and clean this up, get this kind of zip tied so it's a little bit cleaner and not flailing around in the back behind the radio, and then we'll get this stuff out to the car. Did a quick test of everything. The radio comes on good. Pretty much just plug in these 2 connectors. Still trying to figure out the steering wheel controls, but this thing is kind of takes over your chimes and stuff like that of your car, and it is super loud and annoying. Keep that in mind. And yeah, so I actually had to, you can adjust this little dip switch to a lower volume. I would recommend that because it's super loud. You do not want to hear that every time you're driving your car, starting it or whatever. As you can see here, I went ahead and plugged in the 2 harnesses from the console. I have not plugged in the radio antenna as of yet, but I did go ahead and plug in the backup camera cable right here. As you see, everything is plugged in back here, and also to the pack box is the speaker. This is for your chimes and whatnot. Here is the GPS, also plugged in the back of the radio. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and we'll see if everything comes on as it should. Hopefully this comes up, but radio comes on, and I'll go ahead and start the car. We'll test the reverse camera. And not sure if this is displaying or not, but reverse camera is coming on. So that tells me reverse is good. I went ahead and looked in the back of the car real quick, and the LED light for the reverse camera when I go into reverse does come on as it should. So that's all good. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out how to program the steering wheel controls. This has a whole programming process. So I'll link the manual for this if you go with the same device, this pack box here. And I'll see if I can program those, because right now out the box it does not seem like the steering wheel controls do anything. Okay, I actually was completely blind, and the steering wheel controls plug in right here. So coming from the pack box is this black cable with a 90-degree angle connector steering wheel control output, and in the back of the radio from the 20 pin right here is a gray with a red connector called SWC in, steering wheel control in, which is a straight connector. Plug these 2 in together, and oops, I already had the radio on. As you can see, the radio is on, and if I go ahead and manipulate the steering wheel controls, as you can see, volume buttons are working. I can jump sources or source. It's going to prompt me. Okay, so it's moving through the source options, and ignore the chime, but yeah, it appears the steering wheel is good. So I do have it on, as mentioned, the dip switches that they give you here for other radio. If you have a Pioneer, Alpine, your combination for dip switches will be different. Check out the manual. I'll have a link in the description for that. So everything appears to be fully functional. I'll want to find a spot for the GPS. I'll probably mount it somewhere in the back near the top opening as a 3M. So make sure you just wipe it down real good. Find a good spot to mount it that feels good. There's a couple of nice spots actually behind here. Probably, if you can see here, inside the radio unit, I'm gonna go and hook that up. So, and I'll probably have this hanging in this cavity right here, possibly on the right of the radio. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just see if I can line everything up. But just make sure you do test everything. Make sure the radio is functional, everything works before you mount everything back into the dash. Because of course, if you get everything going and it doesn't work, you have to then take everything back apart. Wanted to show a slightly different vantage point here, and as you can see right there, that blue box at the bottom of the dash here is the pack box. There's room behind the HVAC right here, so you can lay it in there. I actually will be applying some foam double-sided tape to that and actually locking it in place so it's not sliding around while driving, which you don't want to hear some noise behind your radio as you're driving around. Also, against the back right there, you can kind of see it out of focus. Against the back part right here in the center, I actually attached the chime box, the CMX box, I believe it's called. That should be out of the way of the radio, and then feeding up over this lip here is the GPS out of the way. Hopefully it gets no interference. It's, it's close to the top of the car as I could get it. So it's right on this lip here, held into place by the double-sided tape that was already pre-applied to it. And then I kind of zip tied up some of the harnesses, ran the microphone, which is right here. And for the microphone, I actually ran the cable up underneath the trim piece here, goes underneath the vents, drops down here, and then the excess is just kind of sitting in this void right here behind this black
piece here, and then the cable actually runs down to the radio into the mic port. So far everything's coming together pretty good. I'm gonna get that double-sided foam tape on that pack box, get that solidly in place, and then we'll go ahead and get that radio hopefully fitted in and secured with the 4 bolts. Hopefully we should be good to go at that point. The radio is installed into the car, looks super clean. I love how the installation kit that Crutchfield provided me, it's a seamless meshing with the HVAC controls. And a real quick note, you do want to loosen these up or leave these loosened from when you remove the OEM radio, these bolts for the HVAC, so you can actually bring the radio in from the top. You want to kind of slot it in so the clips from the install kit slide behind these little clips on the HVAC unit. That'll center it. Then you go ahead and get these 4 bolts installed and then retighten the HVAC bolts. And then just make sure you do leave this harness plug right here. Otherwise you'll have to fish it back out. This is for the trim right here. So you want to make sure that is out and we can hook the trim back up. Now that everything is buttoned up, you might want to recheck everything still functions. You didn't, knock any cables loose while installing the radio. Everything seems good. I was able to get everything nice and buttoned up, and the USB cable I fed out through the little hole here in the dash and kind of just have it hanging down there. I'm going to route it to the glove box probably for now until I think of maybe somewhere else for it. But shouldn't really need it because it does have the wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get the trim in place, plugged in, and then we'll take a look and then run through some tests and then wrap this up. Radio is installed, nice and flush, looks really good. I mean, it blends in with the HVAC perfectly, no unseemly gaps or anything like that. Really, the ugliest part is still from the the trim itself. This passenger airbag thing is pretty ugly, but that's not our fault. Radio itself looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and power up the radio and we'll take a look at some of the features and see if everything's working. Gonna go ahead and start up the car. We'll see how long it takes for the radio to come online. The last few times it seemed like it's pretty quick, a few seconds for it to boot up. And there we have it, fully powered up. Everything is running. And if you did notice, it is a little bit dark out now. I actually had to pull the radio back out because my steering wheel controls stopped working. They worked while I had the radio on the seat plugged in, but somehow between transitioning it from the seat into the dash and getting that pack box situated at the bottom, I must have hit the programming switch. I took it out of the factory mode, which was set by the dip switch positions, and took it into programming mode, and I lost my steering wheel controls, so I had to pull the radio back out to get to that device, which is below it. And I went ahead and hit the button and put it back to factory mode, and my buttons, as you can see, once again function. So I maintain full steering wheel controls, which is essential because I have my daughter be the one driving this car, and she's being a teen driver. You don't want them fumbling with the radio, and hopefully they can just hit the buttons on the steering wheel, make things easy. Now we'll test the reverse, and the backup camera comes on quite nice, super clear, nice wide angle view. That's why I picked this specific backup camera setup. I will probably raise up the camera just a little bit with those set screw adjustments and get that bumper maybe out of position and raise up the LEDs. I am on a decline here, so it kind of throws off the perspective, but the light is very bright, so it does light up quite well of what you'll be doing to help guide you backing up the car. So overall, super pleased with how this turned out. I love how it just looks like really an OEM radio. It doesn't, doesn't stick out as being like tacked on or tacky, and overall looks really good. It's got not the greatest, most fancy screen, but the screen is quite clear. It's got a nice high res on it. It's not like pixely, and no funky special effects, nothing you really needed. But most of the time it'll be in Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, something like that. So you'll be viewing your phone screen or a map or whatever, or your satellite radio or Pandora, whatever music app you happen to use, and it looks very clear. I don't have my phone on me, otherwise I'd be displaying my stuff up on the screen right now. But it looked very nice, and you know, overall, the whole package from Crutchfield made everything super easy. I didn't have to do much wire splicing, other than you know, just for the backup camera harness into the camera harness. But other than that, everything else was plug and play. Made it very easy. That concludes the installation of the aftermarket radio and the backup camera on my daughter's 2014 Chevy Impala Limited. Overall, as you can see, very smooth process. Going with the Crutchfield installation kit and wiring harnesses that were pre-assembled really made it much easier than it could be. If not going that route, you could, of course, individually splice in the wiring harnesses if you don't mind doing some extra work and saving some extra money. So overall, super happy how it turned out. I think my daughter will be pleased with it. I'll be picking her up this evening, and she'll get to check it out in person then. And I'm pretty positive that she'll definitely like how it turned out, especially the wireless Apple CarPlay, which is pretty much essential these days, and the backup camera. Backup camera turned out to be extremely crisp, very nice wide angle of view, which is really key. You can see everything going on around you. So, I mean, I think it turned out almost as good as a many OEM backup camera setups, and the radio itself is better than most most factory radios, other than maybe some of the really fancy ones that come in with a car this day. Anyways, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment, all that fun stuff. Check out the other social media platforms that the channel is on. And you know, if you're feeling like you want to do a little shopping, check out my store, zilla.com/shop. I have some t-shirts, tumblers, some more stuff coming, selling some old hardware like my Sony ZV-E10 camera. I have a GoPro Hero 10 and some other stuff, so check those out. And as always, have a good one, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.